Thank you very much. For the final part of the program, we will hear the concluding remarks from the co-hosts, the United Kingdom and the United States. The two countries have such a level of coordination that they have chosen two Richards to deliver their remarks. So I would call first on Mr. Richard Glenn, Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, or INL, of the U.S. Department of State, to deliver remarks on behalf of the United States. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I fully realize that Richard and I are standing in between you and your shopping in Georgetown. So I will try to be succinct, poignant, and brief. Let me first begin by congratulating everyone on the successful conclusion of this inaugural Global Forum on Asset Recovery. I'd most like to thank our fellow co-sponsor, Richard, representing the UK, and our partners at the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative for helping to organize this event, and the IFC for providing the venue. And also a thanks to my team in INL and for all the work that they've done in helping put this together. But perhaps most importantly, I'd like to thank all of you, and for all of you, the multi-jurisdictional and international organizations who have participated over the last 3 days in this event. When this forum was first conceived, the objectives were simple, and there were three of them. Number one, reaffirm our collective political will to strengthen international cooperation on asset recovery cases. Number two, to build capacity among our practitioners. And number three, and most important of all, make progress on actual ongoing asset recovery cases. And after 3 days of hard work, I believe we have achieved all three of these important objectives. Now, as we reflect on what we have accomplished over the past 3 days and over the months of preparation for this forum, we can acknowledge how far the international community has come in tracking down and recovering the proceeds of corruption. In just a couple of days, the world will celebrate, commemorate, mark, I think it's this Saturday, December 9th, International Anti-Corruption Day, and the 12-year anniversary of the entry into force of the UN Convention Against Corruption. It's quite easy to forget that this treaty created the world's first universally agreed upon framework for asset recovery in 2005, meaning that we've really only been going about this for the last 12 years. And in this relatively small window of time, countries around the world in every region have made significant progress in their ability, or in our collective ability, to investigate and confiscate the proceeds of corruption within and without our borders. As corruption has evolved and new challenges have emerged that we could not have imagined a decade ago, the international community has responded, and I think responded quite well. Innovative initiatives like the Arab and Ukraine forums on asset recovery were organized and launched to respond to the urgent needs of countries looking to recover assets following political transitions. These fora are a valuable model for how the international community can respond when emerging needs arise. Now, GFAR was organized based on these models, and the success of this forum is the result of the hard lessons we have learned over the past decade. We learned that convening asset recovery practitioners to engage in face-to-face consultations on actual cases is critical to the success of our cooperation. And this is why nearly 100 bilateral or multi-jurisdictional consultations have taken place over the last 3 days. It's a tremendous amount of work. We've learned that governments alone cannot prevent and combat corruption. And we are extremely happy to welcome the participation of our partners in civil society. Your work is critical to helping expose graft and shine a very bright light on corruption, as well as advocate for the reforms necessary to prevent corruption from happening in the first place. We've evolved to understand that a main goal in the asset recovery process is not the recovery of stolen assets itself. Rather, the ultimate goal is that these assets benefit the people affected by the corrupt acts in the first place, and we will deter corrupt acts in the future. And of course, for this to happen, there must be an improvement in the ability of our governments to work together on asset returns. We saw this at work this week as well. And I'd like to congratulate Switzerland and Nigeria once again on the MOU signed earlier this week. This cooperation is a good reminder of what we are all working towards and why events like GFAR are so important to our overall shared and common effort. Perhaps most importantly, we have learned that our work does not stop at the conclusion of events like this. If anything, our workload has only grown, as we will need to follow up on the issues discussed over the past 3 days. It is now up to all of us to build upon the momentum we have achieved through this forum and continue the discussions and cooperation we have started here. There is certainly a full menu of work ahead of us, and our commitment to effective asset recovery is critical. We've said from the beginning, GFAR is not the end. It is a touchstone to propel the process forward. Now, if I may for a moment, before ending my remarks, deviate from the prepared material, which always makes those who have prepared the remarks very nervous. What many of you do, whether you're in government or civil society, requires a tremendous amount of courage, a true sense of right versus wrong, and a call to fight for justice and fairness. In joining this fight, many of you have put yourselves and perhaps even your families in peril, and we recognize this. I want to recognize it, and I want to thank you for your bravery, for your courage, and for your resilience, and your willingness to fight for what is right for you, for your communities, and for your countries. And for the world at large. It is not easy, but we will be here to support in any way that we can and do our part in this fight. And on that sentiment, again, I want to congratulate all of you once again and wish you well as we move forward in the work that we have ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of all participants, I think we should also thank the United States for the warm welcome that was extended to all participants in the beautiful city of Washington, D.C. Last but not least, I have to call on Mr. Richard Riley, Director of Serious and Organized Crime within the Office of the Security and Counterterrorism in the Home Office of the United Kingdom, to deliver the concluding remarks on behalf of the co-host. And before that, I would like also to thank you, sir, for the perfect reception last night and invitation to participants in GFAR. Sir, thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests. Thank you very much. It's a privilege for me to speak on behalf of the UK government as co-hosts of this event over the last 3 days. So just some quick thank yous, rather like Richard, and some closing thoughts for me. So the thank yous run rather like Richard's did. Thank you very much to STAR, to the World Bank, and to UNODC. Thank you, Richard, for the US for co-hosting. It is genuinely and uniformly excellent working with the United States, and we've seen evidence of that over the last 3 days and in the preparation for this summit. Thank you to the focus countries. Thank you to members of civil society who have been here as well and have genuinely contributed to the discussion over the last 3 days. And parochially, can I say a thank you to the excellent UK team for the months of work that have gone into this event. They are completely excellent. From a UK perspective, fellow delegates, I am very pleased to renew and reaffirm our commitment to tackling corruption and the global asset return and recovery agenda. It remains a political priority within the United Kingdom, and as a representative of Her Majesty's government, I am very pleased to reaffirm our commitment. It is very hard to summarise 3 days of detailed talks in a couple of minutes, as Richard said, standing before you and freedom. But let me give you 4 quick things. 4 Ps. For those of you who know the UK, we're mildly obsessive about alliteration, so I will follow that now. So 4 Ps, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, persistence. What has been very clear over the last few days is that identifying, freezing, confiscating and returning assets requires persistence. It requires tenacity. It requires attention to detail. It requires creativity. There is no, and I don't think we found it over the last 3 days, there is no magic wand, colleagues, that we can wave over process. So it requires persistence, and from a UK perspective, we exhort both ourselves and fellow countries to be persistent in the asset return process. The second P is public good, and Richard has already mentioned it. I think, and ideally hope, that policymakers like myself, law enforcement colleagues, prosecutors, politicians, civil society representatives can coalesce around a public good, which is that there is a common enemy here, and they are the criminals and the kleptocrats. And I dearly hope that we can, as I say, coalesce around that for the public good. I was once told that it's okay to be passionate about things as a policymaker. I think it's allowed. And I think we have seen and heard that from delegates very clearly over the last 3 days, who have been extremely passionate about their own country, their own needs, and their own desire to put back into countries money which has been frankly looted from them. So there is a public good I think we can coalesce around, as I say, and hold on to. The third P is something which I'd put this out as a challenge. Richard mentioned it, and it's prevention. So we've spoken a lot about the difficulties of trying to get back assets which have already been systematically looted from countries or that criminals have got in their hands. We've spoken rather less about preventing that happening in the first place. Prevention is, as many of you know, the holy grail of law enforcement. You prevent crimes happening before they take place. I think we heard very starkly from the Nigerian Attorney General on the first day that it is rather easy to take money out of systems and rather difficult to put it back into them. So that might point towards us spending more time and more effort and more attention on prevention in the first place. Target hardening systems and processes, making them much more resilient to corruption and against the activities of the most serious and organised criminals preying on individual states. So prevention would be my third P. My fourth one, and it has been riven through the last 3 days, and there's just a danger of being a bit cliched, but it is partnerships. But from a UK perspective, partnerships in all their forms. So partnerships within countries, between government and law enforcement and prosecutors. Partnerships between nation states. Partnerships with civil society. And critically, I believe, and we see this in the United Kingdom, a true partnership with the private sector, who are not represented here a great deal, but who have the keys, for example, to the financial systems that we all have in our countries, and ensuring that the private sector are properly part of a defence mechanism against money laundering and kleptocracy and criminality, I believe, is an important facet of things we should be working towards. My last point would be this, I think. The US, Richard, your Attorney General spoke on day one very powerfully about the fact that the criminals are smart. They are not subject to the things that we are. They have no attention to law and jurisdictions and jurisprudence and boundaries and morality and ethics, all the things which mark out us as advanced societies. The criminals have no truck with. Yes, the criminals are smart, but nation states can be quite smart too. There are an awful lot of capabilities within nation states that, if corralled and channeled and galvanized in the right way, can be a genuine, I believe, force for good. So I leave, Richard, after 3 days with fellow delegates hopeful. None of this is easy. I don't pretend that it is, but I am rather hopeful about the future. And as I say, if we can galvanise around the common enemy, I think that would be good. So, again, a final thanks from a UK perspective. We've been very happy to be co-hosts alongside US colleagues with this. It's been an invigorating 3 days, much food for thought. From a UK perspective, I wish you safe onward travels, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With that, we come to the close of the inaugural meeting of the Global Forum on Asset Recovery. Thank you again. Before we finish, just a couple of housekeeping issues. 2 documents which are prepared for the closing, namely a summary of the discussions as well as the communiqué, are being prepared for all participants and will be available shortly in hard copy for those who want to receive it. So if you're interested, please wait for those documents, which will be available electronically later. Second, the list of participants will be updated and circulated after the meeting, along with a more comprehensive report. So that report will take a few days to prepare. You will receive that electronically. Third, we provided a questionnaire, an evaluation questionnaire for this Global Forum on Asset Recovery. Please take a moment to fill it out. It will really help us in improving such efforts in the future. So if you haven't done so, please take a moment. If you need more copies, ask my colleagues on the front for a copy, and that would be really helpful. We'll try to make it available also electronically. And finally, while we finish the Global Forum right now, we have the press conference starting at 5:15 p.m. This is primarily for the press corps, but of course you are welcome to stay around if you want to watch the press conference. Of course, you may want to go quicker to Georgetown for shopping, but with this, we are officially done with GFAR proceedings, please.
Yeah, so on behalf of STAR, I want to congratulate everybody here, all the countries, all the meetings. I mean, 100 meetings is a lot of meetings. All of the hard work and the spirit, the renewed spirit of asset recovery that I can feel in this room. So thank you very much to co-hosts and countries alike. Bye-bye.